EB5 expand into agriculture? I see it's on the list.
What we're trying to do is figure out a way. First of all, what this bill proposes is charging a small fee, 0.5%, for EB5 applicants that have been through the process and have actually made their investment, to create a pool of money that will allow us, a very small pool, that will allow us to reinvest the EB5 capital in pursuing new EB5 contacts and prospects. So instead of having the general fund support those efforts, we'd like the EB5 program within state government to become self-supporting. Let's not forget that Vermont is the only EB5 program in America where the state is the auditor and the state has the entire state in the program. As governor, I'm going to be very active, working together with my administration to make sure that we are promoting EB5 more aggressively throughout the world. Why? We want to find more creative ways to use EB5 capital as Jay Peak has used, Bill Stenger, as others have used successfully, particularly in the ski area industry and tourism of our economy. We want to be able to use it. Our hope is to use it to capitalize the infrastructure that the Secretary of Agriculture just talked about. In effect, our dream is to have processing facilities close to interstates that will allow our farmers to, in effect, rent or lease the space on a temporary basis to get their value-added product packaged, processed, and out to market. As in this bill, you'll see that we're branding Vermont much more aggressively, combined with the infrastructure to get our farmers the infrastructure they need to get that value-added product, as Vermont Butter and Cheese has done so effectively. We think we have a really bright ag future. So we're trying to link the EB5 money to that infrastructure. Currently, farmers can't afford to make those investments.
What's the total cost of this bill?
So it's less than $1 million. And really what our concern was, let's be clear, as a business person, I understand that government does not grow jobs. Businesses do. The question is, what can government do to help facilitate Vermont as a great place to grow jobs? And I think this bill speaks to most of them. There's incentives there to bring manufacturing back to Vermont. Do simple things, making them a priority and making sure that they're wired to every last mile. Making sure that we have a trained workforce and being really creative about that trained workforce. Making sure that we have internships so that in Vermont's education system, by the time you get through 8th grade, you've been given the options for the careers that one could pursue and the education is required for that career. That by senior year in high school, you've been offered an internship where you're out working in the real world. That the Department of Labor, who's also a partner in this bill, is working on an internship for college graduates who come back, don't have a job, getting them plugged into internships where they can be out working in a real job that would obviously quite likely result in a job. So those are some of the creative things that we're thinking about. It's not a lot of money, it's better utilization of existing opportunities that we're asking of this administration.
Governor, could you talk about the Creative Economy Office? Does this mean the Film Commission is still going to exist, or how are those two offices going to be combined?
Our vision is there that, as you know, Vermont is the only state, would have been the only state that didn't have a film commission. But we wanted to look beyond film. And really, we know that the creative economy is central to the growth of our downtowns and central to the growth of jobs. It seems ironic to me that we have never had a position funded that grows that creative economy. And there's huge economic opportunities there. So our vision really is to take the film commission function and expand it, making it a function of state government, a function of the agency, where we can grow all kinds of creative economy opportunities, from everything from film to animation to the technology necessary for video games, and the list goes on and on. We have a really bright future there.
What did you learn, either what not to do or what to do from the last two jobs bills that you worked on?
I think that what we're trying to do is to not have an over-reliance on tax credits, and instead, although there is some of that in this bill, but instead to reduce our commitment to thinking that we can compete with the other 49 states by beating them to the tax credits. We're not backing away from our current programs. What we're saying is, let's think creatively of better ways that Vermont can market itself Our strengths are our quality of life, our environment, the fact that Americans care more and more about what they eat and where it comes from. Folks want the quality of Vermont in their lives, and we're trying to think of really creative ways to grow those sectors.
Are any of those tax, are you reining in tax credits?
No, we're not reining them in, but we're only expanding them on a limited basis. You'll see that we have a tax credit to hire our veterans. There's a tax credit to hire long-term unemployed. But again, it's not throwing millions and millions of dollars in tax credits. It's instead saying, let's think more creatively about how we can get this done.
What about veggie? Veggie just is the same next year as it is this year?
It is reauthorized under this bill. And what it will do is give us an opportunity throughout state government, throughout my administration, to see what we're doing well there, what we're not, and we'll come back with recommendations on that. But it does reauthorize it for how long?
6 months.
6 months. So it's a 6-month reauthorization to let us get our act together.
Senator Luzzi, does this strike you as a different approach than maybe had been taken in the past few years?
Well, first let me say I think the governor and his new team have really put together a very good bill to start the discussion on economic development. What I see the governor and his team doing is taking a number of programs that we've created over the last several years, which exist but really have had no coordination and no real direction. What this bill does, based on the briefing that we've received, brings those programs together and really tries to bring about job creation, economic development. They've all been percolating under the surface. This brings it together, and we're going to work with the governor and his team to make sure that that is the ultimate result of this legislation.
Will you be adding to the bill, Senator?
What do you think?
Care to elaborate what needs to be added?
He's gotten rusty up there.
I know.
Let's glad back in the state government where he knows what's going on.
I know. I'm glad he's back out in the field. Really.
But do you see some things, following up on Anson's question, do you see some things that you'd like to pursue that perhaps are not included in this legislation?
Well, we just got the briefing this morning, but what we've always tried to do is follow up on some of, we started farm to plate, farm to institution, farm to schools, and historically that's all been with the ag department. I think what you're seeing here is an effort by the governor and his team to meld the economic development initiatives with our bubbling agriculture sector, put those together, market Vermont, help the economy, create jobs. So it's a good look-see at where we are and where we should be going to continue to grow those jobs, bring it all together. So anytime you can bring agencies that have really operated as silos, not necessarily different directions, but running on a parallel course, anytime you can bring those together with the ultimate goal of helping the economy overall and creating jobs, it's a win-win situation.
We stole most of his good ideas and put it in the bills, answering your question.
Did the previous two bills create jobs? Do you have any way of measuring whether they created jobs, or if so, how many? And how do you know when specific aspects of your program are working so that you can focus in on those and do more with them?
There's really, one of my complaints about government generally is that we are not good at measuring outcomes. And I've asked this administration to work together, which they're working now, to build a dashboard for all of us, the press and the public, to be able to measure how we're doing. And I want that dashboard up and running as quickly as we can get it. What would it measure? It would measure how many people were laid off this week. It would measure how many people got jobs this week. It would measure how many inmates we took on this week. It would measure how many inmates we processed out this week. In all the areas and sectors of the economy, what's hooked up this week in terms of broadband and cell service, what is not. So we're trying to build that dashboard. We will. It's going to take us more than a few weeks, but I want it up and running as quickly as possible, because the question that you raised, Peter, what are the outcomes from the efforts of government, is usually answered with a question, usually answered with a response I just gave you. We don't know because we don't measure. We're going to start to measure.
Do you have a target for this package?
Well, we know that our target is to put Vermonters back to work and to raise their incomes. And as I've said, we're going to grow this economy one job at a time, but our target is to be in a lot better shape 2 years from now than we are today.
Do you have a number of jobs in mind?
I don't. All that we can possibly create. But I think that there's two issues here. One is the number of jobs. The other is the level of income. And let's not forget that I've been elected governor at a time where Vermonters are making the same amount of money that they were making a decade ago. That is not acceptable. So my jobs pilgrimage is about growing jobs and raising the income of those who have jobs. And that's a dual challenge, but that's what I'm focused on.
But you must have some idea, is it 50, 500, 5,000? There's got to be a number floating around that is sort of your goal with this bill.
I want to make sure that we have more economic opportunities for Vermonters 2 years from now than when I was hired. And we will measure those with a dashboard that you can see how we're doing. I'm not going to commit to a number. It's as many as we can possibly get in 2 years.
Could you talk about a few of the specifics in the bill, like, excuse me, the business partner incentives? That sounds kind of interesting. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Lawrence, do you want to?
Yeah, sure, I'd be happy to. The Business Partner Incentive Program is modeled on something in, I believe in Delaware, that's been successful. What we've looked at is our recruitment strategies need to focus on companies that have a connection to Vermont and entrepreneurs that have a connection to Vermont. Whether it's because they went to school here, or they grew up here, or they like to ski here, they like to fish here. You know, those are the connections that we know historically bring people to bring their businesses to Vermont. One of the other connections we can work on is people who are already doing business with Vermont firms. So this incentive program says if you as a company work with us to help recruit from your suppliers, from your customers, to bring them closer to you and have them do business in Vermont, we'd like to give you a finder's fee. We're asking for their help in recruiting, and just by providing this small finder's fee, saying we really appreciate it.
We also think there's huge potential in existing businesses having an incentive to get their current vendors to locate in Vermont, as well as second homeowners and UVM and Middlebury grads and the rest.
And how much would that incentive be if you got a finder's fee?
It's
a tax credit?
$1,000 a job
Okay.
for firms that have at least 5 jobs coming in that have to have worked with us so that we know there's nexus.
How about the number of vets that you hope to give the veterans program? How many veterans are you hoping to?
Well, we'd like to see the unemployment rate for veterans be lower than the unemployment rate that's general. I don't know what the number is today. I mean, we've got a few hundred veterans who need jobs, and we need to get that done.
You know, the simple math there is we know that we deployed over 700 in Afghanistan. We know that over 30% of them are unemployed, and we know that Vermont businesses want to help them. So we think that this incentive of $2,000 per vet might just help even more.
Do you think veggie works?
I do, and I got to tell you that I have been meeting with companies already who I want to locate here or expand here, who are waiting to make sure that they succeed in the veggie process before they commit to bringing their jobs here. And I don't want to be too specific because it's confidential, but I can give you my word that I have met with a company who has great jobs coming to southern Vermont from Massachusetts that are dependent upon their success in the veggie tax credit process. So I went in a skeptic, and as governor, I got to tell you, it really does make a difference. Now, are we doing it as well as we could? Probably not, like most things in state government, so that's why we want to look at it. But should we continue it? Yes. I want to make sure that we work with our critics, frankly, Doug Hoffer and others, to make sure that we're doing it right.
Compared to a year ago, how are we doing right now, and how critical is it that this gets passed and gets passed quickly?
I think it's critical for this simple reason. We have an opportunity right now, as the economy is starting to show some signs of life, as the Dow Jones gets back to levels that make people feel more secure at 12,000. The question for Vermont is, are we going to be smart enough, nimble enough fast enough to harvest some opportunity from economic recovery, or is it going to pass us by? And as I've said a million times, huge money is going to be made as we move off of oil and move to other ways of powering the globe. And I want to make sure that Vermont gets some sliver of that economic opportunity. I think part of that is right here at Vermont Butter and Cheese, frankly. I think the days when you're going to be importing, a gallon of milk from California and cheese from Wisconsin are going to be less and less desirable to consumers and more expensive to transport. And so I think it's really important that we move fast for two reasons. I think there's some green shoots in economic recovery, and I think there's huge economic opportunities as we move off of oil. It's just going to bankrupt us, if nothing else, into other technologies, and Vermont is ideally poised to get a sliver of that action.
So you're looking to get this bill, I mean, the jobs bill kind of lingered out there to the end of the session last year. Are you, like your predecessor, looking to get the jobs bill done? Put that on a fast track?
Well, I'm hoping that we have a legislative session, and I know legislative leadership is too, that is timely. And I'm not going to pretend that that this is so important, and everything in this bill is so important that 2 weeks, 14 days is going to make a huge difference. 21 days. So I want to have this bill on my desk when the legislature adjourns. I know that when it goes to Senator Luzzi's committee, it's like decorating Christmas trees. It doesn't come out. Thank you.